Thank you for coming out. This is going to be a short 45 minutes. I'm going to try to show you as many things as I can. So any of you were in Corey House's session right before this? He talked about a lot of foundational AI things. I think there are a lot more AI sessions today. How many of you are using AI in a real way in how you ship software today? Show of hands. Okay, much of the room. Now, there are lots of tools, lots of ways to do things. So let's talk about one. So even though we are talking about MCPs, I will mention some of the other things because there is no perfectly right or wrong way of doing things. It's whatever floats your boat, whatever tools, whatever techniques work best for you. Okay, so I'm Sam. I am an old man. I used to live in Columbus like 14 years back. But I love the community here, love all of you here. I'm a developer advocate for Uno Platform. Anyone heard of us? Some of you? Okay, great. If you have questions, I'm here all day. It's a cross-platform .NET solution, and that's me on most of the places on social if you need to find me. Okay, so AI is here. It's it's kind of like the Industrial Revolution days where you can fight it, but it's here. It's, you can slow it down, but you're kind of doing a disservice if you don't look around how to, multiply your productivity, by itself. So AI is here. It's changing how, we live our lives in some ways, but definitely changing how we build software. So let's look at the why and the how and, what we can do with it. Before we get all into AI and MCPs and all the good stuff, if you have concerns and the ethical things about AI, I'm with you, absolutely. I have a 10-year-old who loves to write and doodle, and I feel bad because I could go to an agent and say, here are the instructions, here are the guardrails, here's the context, write like a 10-year-old. And the best models will do a very good job. So if you're a creative person, yeah, it sucks, which is why you see like Ed Sheeran and Taylor Swift, everybody trying to buy back the rights to their content and all of the models, all of the large language models, they're all kind of in this together. Nobody has had those ethical guardrails in place. So yes, we are using content in a way that probably wasn't meant to. But that's all on the creative side. Code, you might think that as long as it works, who cares, right? But in there are some caveats. So first thing is, as individuals, if we think that the value we are bringing to our organization, our company, our consulting work is the amount of code we can churn out, you all know that well is drying up. Because with the right instructions and context, Claude can write more code in 30 minutes than I can write in 30 days. It's not even fair, right? In fact, it's a challenge to be able to review if you are still human reviewing your code, which you should. To be able to look at so much of stuff. So at that point, so much of code generation that is so quick becomes more of a liability because you can't ship stuff that you don't understand, right? So we got to balance out how we use things. So if you look at software engineering, even the best developers should not be coding for more than maybe 1 or 2 hours a day. Because if you think about the rest of your day, it's meetings, it's architectural decisions, it's trying to figure out with stakeholders, like what is it that we're building in the first place, right? And none of that has gotten easy. That's where the human comes in. But code generation, yeah, that's very, very quick, right? So that's where we are at. Let's dive in more. For those of you who are have a few gray hairs like me, you know that this is nothing new. We have been doing this for 50 years now. The core techniques of how we do machine learning, how we do deep neural networks, those are the same techniques being used. It's just we are throwing a lot of computing. And the models can grok through a lot more things. They are very, very intelligent. So there is a lot of choice. There is no, again, right or wrong here. They all have their own characteristics and their behavioral ways of doing things. But large language models are plentiful. You might look at small language models as well. They can run local. They can even be put on phones. So you got some choices. And you can use them through any of those agents and harnesses, which essentially leverage the models to get you what you want. So lots of options here. Look around, work with the ones that work the best for you. Yes, it's AI. We understand how quickly things can happen, but context is everything. Because without it, you're just, guessing. You're not, you folks heard about AI slop, right, all the time. AI generates slop. Well, It's not if you give it all the right guardrails, right? So, if AI is doing bad things, it's up to you to not, giving it enough instructions and guardrails to make it do the right things. All right, so how do we bring context to AI? There are lots of ways, but let's look at some of the pitfalls as well. Hallucinations are real, right? And most of the models have gotten better at this, but you still get the occasional ones, and the overcorrections are very real. It's almost funny when you talk to GitHub Copilot and Claude to see their behavioral ways to say, and HR is not watching when we are talking to AI, right? So I'm brutal. I'm like, this is garbage. In much worse words, and he's like, yes, you're absolutely right. Let me go hide under a rock. Here are 3 other things I can do. So they will try to overcorrect. The knowledge that these large language models have, and again, the agents that leverage them, it can be time-stamped. So if you have a product release on Sunday, and you want APIs on Monday, it has no clue unless you force it to go look. That's some of the techniques called RAG or whatever you want to call it. It's just grounding AI a little bit. So those challenges are there. AI agents often lack the context of the exact framework that you're building on and the exact app that you're building on. It's one thing to generate lots and lots of code very fast. Who's to say that the code is working? So you have to have a feedback loop. You have to have a way to validate that the code is not just unit tested, but from the UI perspective, from integration perspective, it is all glued together, right? So validation loops are very, very important. Context windows, like we all like to chat and have long conversations with our AI. If you keep at it for hours and hours, eventually that context window, bless you, is going to run out, right? And then AI agents will try to compact. And the moment they do that, you lose a whole bunch of context. So you want to avoid that a little bit. So if you can offload some of the work from the main thread, that really helps. But AI needs tools, because if you are expecting the agent to know everything, that's a hard sell. You're going to spin up a lot more things in your context window. You're going to spin up or spend your tokens a lot more quickly. So just watch how you can offload some of the work. You need grounding, validations. We talked about all of this. So how many of you know about this MCP? This is a mixed bag, right? So some people will say, yeah, it's bloat. No, do this. We will actually talk about skills and sub-agents a little bit. They're all very similar, but slightly different concepts. So again, it's also overwhelming for us to look at all of these new and evolving things and just trying to stay up on top of it. Pick a couple. See if it's working for you. Try it for a month, come back and see if there are other alternatives that work better for you. So what is this thing? Came from Anthropic, actually, because it was about 1.5 years back when they first started talking about it. Everybody realizes that there has to be a standard so AI agents can talk to systems that they're not a part of, right? So your SQL server under the table, your workflows, your documentation, your apps, your frameworks. It just doesn't know about any of this unless you give it the tools. And authentication matters, because if you have a GitHub or a Slack MCP tool, it needs to know who you are, so the agent is acting on your behalf. So all of that is well thought out. So the idea here is you are going to expose an MCP server. We'll talk about hosts and clients in a second. Oh, and by the way, I will try to show you demos, but these are very thick walls, so Wi-Fi is hard. I am tethered off my phone, so we'll see. Whatever happens with AI is the only thing that could have happened, right? So we'll see how much I can show off. But the idea is you're going to have very specific contextual tools that the agent can invoke. So if I say, I'm good with this PR, go check it in. How does go commit? How does the agent know where to commit, how to commit? It needs tools to go and do that. If I say push this message to Teams or Slack, how does it know that? It needs those contextual tools. So the idea is the agents will have lots and lots of tools that are well described with metadata, so they know exactly when they apply, and they're going to fire off those tools. Now, in here is a bit of a risk because you're at the disposal of the agent to figure out that it needs a tool invocation. You can force it, you can be explicit to say, use this tool, but it might still choose not to. Agents think they're smart, right? So there's work being put in here in terms of governance. There are also limits to, you cannot have thousands of tools accessible to an agent. It's going to get overwhelmed. So, how do agents invoke tools? This is being all worked out, but the basics are here. So the idea here is pretty simple. We are going to do pretty standard communication over the wire. It's JSON. We are going to do very basic things like standard I/O if it's local. We are going to do HTTP with server-sent events like for streaming stuff. So pretty basic ideas, but just a standardization. Anthropic started working on it, and Microsoft and OpenAI and everybody else is behind it. They're fighting it out, but it's nice that we have some standards at least. I'll talk about hosts and clients and servers. So these are slightly different ideas with MCP, but the biggest benefit is with servers. These are some of the other concepts that you will hear. Again, there are multiple ways in which your workflows might be evolving. So look at all of this, see what makes sense. You could say that skills might do very similar things that MCPs do, or MCPs could be more like tools, while skills are like a recipe card, so it tells you exactly how to do something, and then you go off and use the MCP tools to actually do this stuff. So lots of ways. Here's one way in which I try to explain this. Let's just say you are a developer, but you are the restaurant owner. You have just bought yourself a restaurant, and you want to have good service every night. So what do? You hire one or more chefs who can, keep the meal service going. So that's your agent. The chef should not be discovering poultry and flour, things like that. So those are your tools at the disposal of the chef to go do things, so that you're not rediscovering things from the scratch. You want to be efficient. Recipes, those are more like things where the chef doesn't need to memorize the whole cookbook. You can have a card sitting on the fridge that says, here's how I make this dish, right? So quick little instructions, and any of this can have bloat, so just watch out a little bit. You don't want a 3,000 line skill with lots and lots of code, because all of that needs to be read up, and it's going to chew through your context window, right? So everything with a little bit of care. Sub-agents are those dedicated things where you could say, go cut up this thing, bring me back this sauce. So those are the sous chefs of the house. That's sub-agents. So it's nice to have sous chefs because, again, the chef can only amplify themselves as much. It's good to be able to hand it off to somebody else and say, go do this and come back. So you're not actually consuming the agents or the main chef's thing. Then there are loops. There are lots of ways of doing this. If you're using GitHub Copilot, you may have heard of autopilot mode. Claude, you may have heard of Ralph Wiggum. All of these are very similar ideas where if you talk to an agent to say, go do this, it's going to very quickly, unless it's a huge feature, then you run the risk of going over your context window. But AI agents like to get things done and be stateless and come back to you and say, I'm done. But did you validate? Did you run all the test cases? Did you do all the things that I asked you to do? So this is where these loops come in, and they will go over and over again with the same set of prompts. Here are the specs. Here are the test cases. Here is my UI validation. Go do all of that before you come back and say you're done. So at the end of the day, you choose your tools, you run the show, right? A lot of my examples that you're going to see are with .NET, because that's where I belong, or I always have. It's a pretty mature stack that we're building on. Some of the examples are going to be with this, because this is where I spend my day. This is Una Platform. It's an open source stack for building cross-platform .NET apps with lots and lots of AI and design tooling. So this was us, and it's always been open source, but we have also re-engineered some of the core things with MCPs, just so you have access to some of the tooling. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is, again, just because I work on it, but you don't have to use this. You can use, you can think of, getting some inspiration for the things that you build to see what type of context you can bring to your AI agents. So that's, again, just going to be some of my examples. This is the future. If you are not using some of these AI tools to your advantage, believe that your competition will. So look around and choose the best type of workflow that suits you. Okay, so shall we look at some stuff? Any broad questions? Everyone awake? Okay. We are 15 minutes in. Let's go. We'll come back to some of these decision points in just a second. So let's make this a little bit bigger. So if you wanted to know more, this is Model Context Protocol. This is the home of all things MCP. And you can read up on how they think about what is MCP. This is the diagram I showed you. So if you look at the architecture, these are the places where MCPs show up. So there's this concept of a host and a client. So a host, let me give you an example. So if you're using Visual Studio or VS Code, That's a host, because it's housing the things that's talking and leveraging MCP tools. A client is the specific part of the host that's doing the communication. So in this case, the agentic harness. That could be Claude Code, that could be GitHub Copilot, or Claude Code's agent, or Codex, or Gemini. So any of those agentic behaviors that's actually invoking the MCP tools, that's your host. So again, or that's your client. If you need a way to embed this stuff, then maybe you're building a host or a client, but majority of us, we are building servers, because that's where the real benefit is. That's where we can bring these wildly out of context things into the context of what AI agents can do. So again, that's the whole idea. Now, if you look at some of the SDKs, there are lots of ways to go do this. So TypeScript, Python, C#, Ruby, you're well covered, right? So start here, and it's going to show you all the things, right? Let's look at some examples, shall we? I am still tethered, which is good. Let's bump up my visibility here, and let's go. So I'm going to show you things in VS Code, but again, just understand that it works everywhere else. Is this readable? Let me actually switch. By the way, VS Code, their best thing is like a profile thing, so you can switch up. So let me make this light mode so we can read easier. Dark mode is great until you are showing things. Ooh, too bright. But everyone see this? Okay? Yes? Okay. So what I'm trying to show you here is just very basic fundamentals here. So this is a C# Poco object or a class. This is a .NET console app. That's all there is to it. So I have a class called athlete, and I have a list of athletes. Now I do have the GitHub Copilot and the Claude extensions running on my IDE. Again, the IDE, you have a lot of freedom here. You can do almost all of it through command line. Terminal is back, and it's beautiful, and it's very fast. So just so you know, so here as I hit enter, you can see the ghost text come in, right? I didn't type that last line, so I can hit tab, and I accept that. So I can hit enter again, and it tries to keep generating what it is. So at any point, these extensions and these AI agents, they're looking at the file, like they're looking at the very thing that you have open. They're looking through your code base. They're trying to be helpful, but this is kind of like IntelliSense Plus. This is not truly using the full flow of the AI agentic harness. So let's go back and stop where we had started. So now let's look at things with the real AI chat. And yes, you can do things in line, but the experience is so much better when you look at chat experiences. So here's chat, and this is GitHub Copilot. We'll look at the other stuff right here as well. By the way, you do have plan mode, so if you don't want AI to just start generating a whole bunch of code from the get-go, use some plan mode. If it's a big feature, plan it out, spec it out, and then you will have, so it's upfront investments to get better output from AI. So use what makes sense, use any of your models of your choice. So none of that matters here. We're just going to say hello, and let's see if Wi-Fi holds up. It's thinking for a second. Oh boy, this is going to be a little slow, but we'll see. All right. So it says, ahoy, Captain, right? So that's not normal. Why is it telling me that? Let's do more. Let's just say, let's add some more sample athletes to main, right? We'll give it a second to spin up and see. I'll inspect. I'm keeping this real here because that's what the experience is, but understand this is going to be much faster if you are on better Wi-Fi. Okay, so it came up with a few more things, which is good. So now you see some differences here. Normally when I give it here's my athlete class, the sports and the names that I get are, traditional Western names or sports that's popular here. What about other things? So now I'm kind of making it give me some more variety of what is in there. So that's nice. Now, how about I say, give me hello world in main. Let's try that. Oh, that did not work at all. Okay. Well, no, you did not do your job well. We'll try one more time and see if it works. What if I just say hello world here? Okay, now it's trying. Oh, okay, so it kind of did it. So those are not normal interactions that we have with AI, right? So I'm trying to show you some basic ways of guiding it your way. So how is any of this working? So first thing is at a global level, and your workspace, but this is really best done when you are at the root of your project folder. So think about really global things that you want to do throughout your agentic experiences. GitHub likes to call it Copilot instructions.md. This is a very generic concept. Claude likes to just call it Claude.md. But if you do like agents.md, most of the agentic harnesses will read that. So if you want something that's really portable, then use agents.md. But same idea. You are giving AI instructions, right? So this is where I said, hey, you got to call me a captain every time. And this is global. So GitHub Copilot calls me a captain every time. Now here I have some naming conventions. So your team's coding standards, naming conventions, anything that is global for your team across all of the projects that you work on, that should go in here, right? No questions asked. Now be a little careful. This should not be 3,000 lines long. Keep it short, right? And this is where, like I said, hey, give me some variety in athlete data, and it does. So that is instructions. And again, some of it could be a skill, some of it could be but again, you get the idea that skills are more specific, MCPs are tools. This is kind of at a global level. So the next thing is, how did it do this hello world thing? Well, that's a skill. Now that skill is sitting right here, and I'm clearly saying, here's your description of what this skill is, and when invoked, you got to type in exactly that. And that is sitting right here in my project. This is my instruction, and that's a skill MD. You can have a skill folder, and you can have many, many, many skills, right? Again, if you have 1,000 skills, it's going to have to parse through all of it to figure it out. And agents are smart. It will cache some things to know when to use which skill and when to use which MCP. But just use a judgment of how much you want to do this. So that's a skill. Again, these are very specific things. So what is nice about skills is you can script things. You can say, here is how you do a SQL query. Here's my guidelines of how to write that. Here are some tools you might use. Here are some database pointers. Go, right? So that's a skill, which is essentially a recipe for you to do something with AI. Any questions so far? Yeah? Okay. The next thing was, we talked about agent MD. Oh, this is a separate agent. This is actually a sub-agent. So let me go pull this up. This is command line, by the way. So you can do this on PowerShell, Bash, anywhere. So let's see, where am I? So this was .NET AI. And if I pull up Claude here, so this is Claude, sure, auto update failed, but here if I go agents, so this is where Claude says, what else do I have to work with? What are some sub-agents? So I have a code review analyzer. So this is, again, good practice where you can offload some of the work from your main context window onto other things, right? So if I wanted to do a code review, if I wanted to have an agent that just writes unit tests, so I can do all of that. So mix and match, pitching agents against each other is a good practice, because then you get the best of Codex, best of Cloud, best of GitHub Copilot. So I'm not going to sit here and do the code review, but here is the, oh, and by the way, you don't need to write all of this. So if I say create a new agent, Claude is going to go through and say, what exactly do you want in your agent? And it's going to kind of walk you through. So this is my agent. So you'll notice right out of the gate, it's a lot of text, because again, it's not human written, it's generated. So here I'm just saying, hey, I want you to review a .NET code base. Look at the tools here. So this is where you can mention MCPs. This is where you can mention any other sub-agents. So I'm not asking it to write any code. I'm just saying, hey, you can just do glob and grep and web search and fetch. Models are important because not everything needs an Opus 4.6, right? Because that's very expensive, and it's keep it for the big stuff. For little things, you can get away with smaller GPT models or haiku models, right? So clearly stating in system prompts like, you are an expert, this is your job, look for these things in your review, look for any evaluation, security risks, all of that. And then when I say go review my code base, it's going to fire off that sub-agent, right? So just saying that MCPs are not the solution to everything. If you wanted to use any of this, please go ahead. Okay, so let's switch to MCPs really quick. No, I don't want to save. So let's go to MCPs. I will show you the basics first, and then we'll build on it really quickly. Let's look at this one here. All right, so this is also C#. Keep in mind, you can do this from any other programming language as well. This is CS Proj, very, very simple. It's a .NET runtime executable. I am including these two things because I'm doing C#. That extensions hosting essentially reads up your DLLs, loads it up in memory, and exposes that out. But this one here is the key. And I should update this. They have actually reached 1.0 about a couple of months back. So that's the NuGet package that you use to get all of this. So if I look at program.cs, it's super simple of how you expose this out to your AI agent. So in your .NET generic build host, you're going to wire up this thing about MCPs and just say, hey, I'm going to pretend that, not pretend, but this is an MCP server. You're going to do standard I/O because I have it right here, and you're going to reflect and bring up those tools from assembly. That's all. Now, the very first or the basic thing is if I go in here and make myself an echo tool, this little attribute on my function is what tells the agent that this is an MCP tool. So I'm explicitly declaring that there is this thing. So how do I use this? So first up, I can drop this into an mcp.json. It's a very similar idea for other things. Codex likes to use like an array of things, but Claude and GitHub Copilot and Gemini, they will all read a JSON very happily. So what I'm doing here is very explicitly saying this is a .NET thing. Go read that CS Proj, find the DLL, and off you go. So with that, I can come in here to my chat window, and if I do a hash echo, you see that? That's my tool, right? So I can invoke it very explicitly, saying, "Hello, Star Trek," and it'll think for a second and come back with the "Hello World." This is your agent asking whether you should invoke a tool. So this here is VS Code's way of approving things. This is bypass approvals, right? So this is called YOLO. So I can do Copilot -- YOLO, which means it's never going to stop me. Do it at your own risk. It should not have. So anytime you have AI deleting production databases, that's not AI's fault, right? So be careful about the permissions that you give it. But the fastest way to supercharge your workflow is letting AI fly a little bit. Do it in a sandbox. Do it in a Docker container. Do it in a folder where it does not have access to anything else, and just let it fly. So I'm going to allow this for a second, and it will invoke that tool and just say, "Hello from Star Trek," right? And brings that pirate flag because I asked it to, right? So that's just a very basic thing. Now, how can I use this? So just something a little bit more realistic. One of my go-to things to test things out is this thing called JSON placeholder. Anytime I need a RESTful API that's just totally fake, I go here. So they have some endpoints, which is very easy to ping. In fact, you can do full CRUD operations: create, read, update, delete. But they'll bring it back every 5 minutes, so they don't care. So if I went to this posts, what you see here is just JSON coming back. I got some few pieces of information, like in a blog post. I get the user ID, title, body, and it's in Latin, so makes it fun. So if that's the API, if that's the data that I'm wanting to get to and have my agents access to, I can do that pretty easily. So yes, it's APIs. I saw a meme the other day which really hurt for the Star Wars fans. It's Anakin, old school Anakin, talking to Padme to say, "I am using the latest and greatest in AI." And Padme is like, "Are you really?" He's like, "No, I'm writing APIs." But yes, these are all APIs, right? But for agents. So what I have here is, let's collapse this for a second. What I have here is this little class that says I can ping that URL, and I can go to posts, and here is the JSON property mapping. If I needed to call it something else, that's my C# object, and I want a collection of that. So one line, get this from that JSON or from that endpoint, give me back some JSON, one line of code, and which is beautiful. So here is my post data, essentially where I expose it out as an MCP server. So again, this is meant to give me a list of sample posts, but this is powerful because anytime I ask AI to say, "Go get me some data," it's going to invoke this because it knows that's the place to go get some sample data, so I can invoke my post service. If I don't find something, the internet isn't working, it's going to give me some sample things here. So if I go invoke this now, if I say very explicitly get post sample data and just fire this off, again, over my phone, tethering, it might be slow. Here's it, it's trying to go. And this would be just JSON coming back. It's large sample data, so I'm not going to show you the whole thing. That's fine. But if I click on it, that's the JSON coming back, right? So what I'm trying to say is this little piece of code here, this can be anything. Like this is your way of bringing whatever context you need from your SQL Server, from your wiki, from your functions, from your cloud, anything that is your context that you want AI to have, and as an agentic workflow, bring it, right? And MCPs will support OAuth by default. It's not the easiest thing to do, but they have plenty of documentation, so you have to exchange tokens, get it back, and then you can fire it off, right? So this is the basics of MCP. Make sense with me? Okay, I have 14 minutes left, so let's go. Now, you can use this same idea everywhere, so let me close this down. I'll show you a slightly different version of this. So let's go to like a weather MCP, slightly more real. So here is my weather MCP. Again, same exact idea. You can see like I've tried this before. So I have two tools here. One is called get alerts for a state or a thing, and then get forecast. Now this get forecast takes in a lat long, and what I'm using here is essentially api.weather.gov. Everyone know this? Any place in the US you can get weather in a click. So I have those two things in place. So now if I go and say, and by the way, if I click in here just to make sure that you're reading those MCPs, most visual tools will allow you to look at this. So there is my weather MCP. And there are the two tools that I have wired up. So all local, all coming from my CS proj, but that's where it is. So now if I say, get me weather forecast for Columbus, Ohio. Let's be explicit. And go. Now, it needs a lat long, but the agent is smart enough to figure out that, that's the lat long of Ohio or Columbus, and let's just go. Now it fires off, and now you'll get the actual weather details, right? So pretty easy to wire up. Ooh, warmer but unsettled. I don't know what that means. But you can do the exact same thing from any place, right? So if I pull up this same thing from Cursor, so all of these agentic IDs, they're all the same. They all read different things here. So this is Cursor, which looks a little bit like VS Code. So in here, you can see like those are my two weather MCPs. So Cursor is reading the exact same things as GitHub Copilot is, right? So where this is read doesn't matter, right? So with me so far, this is just very basic. It's APIs for the agents to invoke at their will. Now, what can you do with this? So here's some inspiration. So let me close down some of this stuff. Let me take you to a more real-world project with .NET. Let's just do this one here. This is like an enterprise dashboard I was working on. One of the things that you want to do, and think about this in your agent. This is an UNO platform app, so it's cross-platform .NET by nature. You can see it's reading the CS proj and figuring out all the places where my app can run. So I can choose that. But in here are a couple of things that we have worked on. So anytime you open up a folder, we wire this up for you. So we have two, and you can do the same. So we have a docs MCP or an initialization MCP. So you, the developer, never have to leave the ID or the CLI. The latest docs should be at your fingertips or the agent's fingertips. So it can read multiple docs, it can fetch, it can summarize, it can initialize itself with the best practices. And for each of them, like the metadata really matters. So if I hover, maybe, went too far away. No, let me come back here. Okay, go away. I just wanted to show you the metadata, but each of them have quite a bit of metadata that tells the agent, here's what you can, there you go. So that's the system prompt that we are doing to say, here's how you invoke the tool and when you should invoke the tool. So that's the docs. And then we also have what's called app MCP. Anybody know Playwright? Yeah, so this is Playwright for, done better, but for .NET apps, right? So any type of desktop, mobile apps, we can do interactivity. This is exactly how you can use MCPs to validate and ground your AI agents. Don't just generate UI, run some tests. Run some UI tests that tell you exactly how to do things. So this is an MCP server that exposes a bunch of tools that are essentially, how can I click inside of your app? How can I look at the visual structure? How can I take a screenshot or type in text? So everything that a QA human being can do, this can do pretty well on its own. So we have this wired up. So now if I say, tell me about MVUX pattern with Uno platform. MVVM is a very common design pattern that we use for C# and XAML code bases. This is a slight different take on it. It's MVU, more kind of suited for like reactive extension type things. So you can see that it's doing multiple doc searches and fetches. So I never have to leave. It's doing it over a slow connection, but you can see like it brought back things from 5 different pages in the docs right here in my IDE, right? So that's power. Did I see a hand anywhere? Yes, sorry. I'll take a quick question.
I was under the impression an MCP was like a server that listens on the network and the AI talks to it. That doesn't seem to be what you're doing here.
So the question is an MCP a server? In a way, yes, but the output of all of the functions of that server, whatever, it's not listening to your things directly, it's the AI agent listening to you. And you're essentially wiring up a set of tools to say, here is your kitchen sink of things you can use if you see fit, right? So the server by itself isn't listening, but it's exposing all of its capabilities to the AI agent, if that makes sense, right?
So the code that you wrote, the actual C# code, where does it compile and run? Where is it like actually running?
So the code is, where is this running? So it's running locally wherever you want to have it running. So the couple of examples that I showed you, that is the end result of a .NET run or a .NET build. It's producing DLLs. But in this case, the GitHub Copilot or Claude can look through the DLL and say, oh, I see a couple of tools. Now, that's just when I'm running it local. When I do this over HTTP, then I can have this hosted on any server, anything that is internet-facing or local within my firewall, so my AI agent can get access to it, right? Okay, I got, 7 more minutes left? 7, 8 minutes? Okay, let me go as fast as I can. So let me show you what this means from a completely headless standpoint as well. So let me come out of Claude here for a second. Go away. Go away, Claude. There you go. So clear this out, and where am I? So let's go to a little counter app that I have. Right, so I'm going to bring up Copilot. Oh, and by the way, important things first. How many of you use Copilot CLI? Anyone? Okay, it's beautiful. It's the exact same thing that you do in Visual Studio, VS Code. Now, keep in mind that essentially when you're using these tools, you're using an agentic harness. And Microsoft is trying to build some models. So yes, you can use Claude and GPT models and everything, but you're not using Microsoft's own models. And some might argue, like my friend Corey before me, that the agentic harness is probably the best made by the people who made the agent and made the model in the first place. But again, your experiences might vary. I love Copilot CLI because it's very flexible, runs everywhere. You can launch it just like that. But if there's one thing you want to take away is I can do banner. When I do that, I get that 80s style fancy thing. That can be a flag in your instructions, so it always does that. So now it's saying, hey, can I use this folder safely? I will say yes. So just the fact that I loaded up Copilot CLI in a project, it knows a few things. It knows some skills that I use to build my apps, and it has some MCP servers. So if I do a whack MCP, it's going to pull up the same 2 MCP servers that I showed you. That's my Uno app, or my app MCP and my docs MCP, so I know that the agent is grounded in our stuff. So it's not going to do wildly hallucinating things. So now, without even looking at my code, and this is how you can fly quicker, I could say, launch the app on desktop, right? I'm not going to give it anything else, right? So it might think for a second, but it has to realize that this is a .NET app, and it has to read the CS proj, and it finds the directories, but it also knows those tools. So let's see how it does. Again, like experiences might vary. It's reading the CS proj, it's doing all the things. Now it says Uno app start. That's an MCP server. So it found it, and this is already approved for that workspace, so it didn't ask me before it invoked it. But this is how I can fly fast, because now I'm not looking at my code. I'm not saying you don't look at your code. I'm just saying for your testing purposes, this might be a way to automate and fire things off quickly in your CI/CD. as you're checking in things in your commit, this is how it can fly. So it found an app started my app, and then it says, hey, let me take a screenshot of your app, because I know your code, but I don't know what your app looks like, right? So it's taking a screenshot, and it's trying to figure out what does the app look like. So now I can come in here and say, let's test the counter button, right? Very simple stuff. But again, what it means is if you have a very, very complex dashboard, you could say, when I click this, I want this to happen. So think about testing. This is, really good for this type of scenario. So it, looks at a visual tree, looks at a default action, looks at binding, looks at commands, and it's, clicked on this like 3 times. Like I was never close to this button, so it's clicked in 3 times, 0 to 3. That's how it goes, right? So very, very simple stuff. So think about what you can do with, the right MCP tools. MCPs can bring a lot of this unique app context that the agent will just not have without this type of a tool. Make sense? Make sense? Yeah? Okay. What else? What else can we look at? So let's look at, hold on. So what can we build with this stuff? Let me exit out of this, so it's not sitting there. So here, if you wanted to go look as to what's possible, this is in a platform, and we have been having a lot of fun building lots and lots of apps which are well tested with the UI. So any of these will take me weeks and weeks to do. Like I'm an 80s kid, so Winamp, I grew up with Winamp. Digital Rain with Matrix, like this is amazing UX, all tested with MCP tools, all built with grounded MCP tools, because it's always looking at our docs for inspiration before it actually goes off and does something, right? So again, get some inspiration if that's what you're after. One other thing to note is you can have some tools, you can inspect things, you can debug things. This is a pretty simple MCP inspector that they have. What it does is it just looks at your project. You don't need to install anything. You can just do an npx, and then the front end is React. The back end is whatever it is that, .NET if you want to give it that. But essentially, you can get a nice interface like this that shows all the tools that you have. And this is kind of like Postman or Fiddler in a way, so you can actually inspect through a DLL and fire off things. You can just check if everything is working before you go. Okay, any questions so far? Any questions? Okay, we got 1 minute left here. So let me go back here and kind of start where we started. This is not a one thing that fixes all of your problems, right? So look around and see which thing is the most beneficial thing to you. MCPs should be reserved for the things that are very, very specific, that need authentication, that without those core raw ingredients, the agent or the chef is going to really spend a lot of time just recreating all of that from scratch, and it makes no sense, right? And in fact, the chef might not even have a way to create a potato in the kitchen, right? So you need the farmer, you need the people to bring those raw ingredients to you. Where do skills and subagents matter? Yes, there is a bit of an overlap. Some things that we are doing with MCPs could be done with a skill. But again, you're going to have to add a lot of things in the skill for it to be able to be invoked like the way MCPs are. So MCPs are fast. Skills take a little bit more of your context window. AI adoption is a big spectrum, as all of you can tell. I see people who are averse to AI because like AI is not touching my source code. And then on the flip side are people who are running 10 agents a day, multi-agent orchestration, and that's a big cognitive load. I don't know if it actually makes you productive, but that's the open claw world where you're trying to automate everything. So choose where you want to be, and there is no right or wrong. Start small and see if you can bring some context to your agents and start being productive. Start reviewing stuff. This is, it's fascinating the times that we are living in, but you have to have some experience to look at what AI is generating, and without that experience, it gets harder because you're just creating more and more cognitive load to look at as much of code. So, guide it down. The more effort that you spend up front, the better your results. And again, see if you can pitch agents against each other to code review each other's work. That's nice. You run the show. Okay, so you saw a lot of this. I'm completely out of time, but hopefully you see that there are lots of ways to bring context. So do what helps you with your productivity. Be productive and embrace at your own pace. We have lots of ammunition to go change the world. Let's build amazing things, and thank you so much for spending an hour. I get sometimes judged on number of people trying things out. So if any of that, what I showed you made sense, so give it a try. That's platform.uno. But otherwise, hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for your time. All right. Yes.